So this deck is, I'm trying to see what the red splash is. I would assume it's just for Crater Claws and Xenagos, which appears to be the case.
I don't see any dragons running around here just yet. So for McCarroll, he does have a small splash of red in his devotion deck. For Jeff, he is playing Teamer Aggro again. He's got 4 Knuckle Blades, 4 Rabble Masters, 4 Pelucranos, 4 Stormbreath Dragon, 3 Crater's Claws himself. He's also got main deck Stubborn Denial, too, a card that Brian Kilber has been very fond of. He'll start with a Frontier Bivouac, while McCarroll does have some mana acceleration here with Elvish Mystic. Turn 2 will net a Temple of Abandon. Top card going to stay on top. And an attack here for John. First blood has been achieved here in round number 3.
I suspect this matchup will be challenging for Jeff. I think the Green Devotion deck is just more powerful, and they're doing very close to the same thing in a lot of respects. And Jeff's deck ultimately is about attacking on the ground, which is not a great strategy against Green Devotion.
Wooded Foothills will search for land, and Crater's Claw will take care of the Elvish Mystic. Wants to slow down the mana acceleration.
Can't let Green Devotion just go unchecked.
The draws a Sylvan Caryatid, and that will be deployed there for McCarroll. You see, John does have some powerful spells in his hand. That's typically the case with these Green Devotion decks. The big trick is, can you deploy them in time?
Caryatid is the best way to ensure that. It's the most stable mana accelerant.
Hoogland will untap and draws. McCarroll gives him the thumbs up to take his turn. Shivan Reef is what he's found. See if Jeff has anything spicy to do on this turn. You can see there's a Savage Knuckleblade over there. Quite the powerful card. See if he wants to deploy that. Could go the Courser route as well, but he will go with the 4/4 with all the abilities in the Knuckleblade. Over to McCarroll we will go. There is a forest. This is 5 mana. That's a big old Arbor Colossus to block the road.
Arbor Colossus seems like a critical piece of the puzzle now for Green Devotion because so many decks are trying to attack through the air.
Jeff going to play a Shivan Reef. And Knuckleblade can tangle with the Arbor Colossus, of course. Won't win the war, but can trade. Here's the attack. There's the block very quickly. There's a pump, and they will trade off. So McCarroll is happy with that exchange as he quickly untaps, draws a card.
McCarroll's hand is just so glutted with 5s that I think he's just happy to make whatever trades he can and try to deploy Nissa on a stable board.
Looks like a Sylvan Caryatid and a Hair of the Wilds are the cards that are deployed there for McCarroll. Back to Hoogland we go.
Good eyeball. Is that the game day promo?
That is. Attack for 4 in the air for the dragon.
You can see why Jeff was willing to give up so much tempo to get that Arbor Colossus off the board. The Stormbreath Dragon, the real prize here.
Here's 5 mana. That's a Nissa. This is an Angry Forest. And this will be an attack here for 7 because Ferocious conveniently is online due to the 4/4 land. You know what that is?
Good deck building.
Absolutely.
Ferocious cards are alongside 4 power creatures.
It's good deck building.
It's fairly obvious deck building, but yes, it's good deck building.
Jeff will draw a card, Stormbreath Dragon at the ready. Does have a couple copies of Teamer Charm in grip. Though he is a little bit lower than I imagined he'd like to be at 11. Teamer Charm, quite the flexible charm. We've talked about Abzan Charm, Sultai Charm, quite a bit here. There's a Mana Confluence for Jeff, so his mana base is a little bit painful. You see there are 2 copies of Shivan Reef and the Mana Confluence in play, alongside a Forest, Mountain, and a Frontier Bivouac. Who I'm going to start by attacking. We'll see where the Stormbreath Dragon goes. It will take down the Nissa, and then Jeff will just pass the turn back. McCarroll will draw a Forest, put that into play rather quickly. This will be a Teamer Charm. He's actually going to go after this. It looks like in the draw step. Slow down that mana a little bit. Now here's an attack for 2, not 3. And now here's a Genesis Hydra. That'll be for 4. We'll take a look at these 4 cards. Courser and Heir of the Wilds are the cards you can find, so Heir's going to come into play. And we'll see if the Genesis Hydra actually resolves, since Jeff does have a copy of Teamer Charm in his hand. It'll be a painful one, though.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think Jeff is really weighing his options on if he actually wants to do that right now. Again,
Seems like
it'll be quite painful. And he's going to use that counter target spell unless his controller pays 3, so a bit of an expensive mana leak, and in this case, a very painful one. You surprised by that?
No, I guess he does need to answer the Genesis Hydra, and he doesn't really have an answer in hand right now. This puts him on. This basically puts John with the second Stormbreath Dragon, puts John on, have something to add power to your table this turn or bust.
Yeah, well, if John does have a way to make these bigger, it's game over. Since those 2/2 Hair of the Wilds, if he has Ferocious, it's lights out. Looks like Jeff's going to go to 2, and I think we got ourselves a Fireball, and that's going to do it. Crater's Claw is going to wrap it up. John McCarroll going to win game number 1 here over Jeff Hoogland. Green-Red Devotion up a game over Teamer Aggro. And part of the reason I think we saw Jeff make that attack is because Air of the Wilds have Death Touch.
And I think with the Teamer Charm there, I think Jeff sort of has to do it even though it looks bad, because he's committed next turn to casting Stormbreath Dragon no matter what. So the Teamer Charm's going to rot in his hand otherwise. And that Genesis Hydra is big. It's worth interacting with. So even though Jeff, at the end of the day there, the odds he doesn't win that game, the odds that he wins that game are fairly low because John just needs any 4-power creature or a Crater's Claws or a Setessan Tactics. I mean, there's a million things that can go wrong there.
For sure.
I think Jeff gave himself the best shot to win the game based on the cards he had in his hands.
Time to take a look at the old sideboard here for Jeff. A couple copies of Magma Spray along with 4 Lightning Strikes, 2 Stoke the Flames, a Stubborn Denial, 1 Negate, 3 copies of Angel Stroke, and then a single Dig Through Time. You see a lot of counter magic in the sideboards of these Teamer decks.
I don't know how much you're going to want to go into that sort of stuff against Green Devotion. The Stubborn Denials are, I think, pretty sketchy because so many of the powerful things are creatures also. But Disdainful Stroke seems very good to me. I like the Magma Sprays too to try to keep John off his early mana development.
And depending on what the mana acceleration is, of course, Elvish Mystic will be in there. You know, if there are Voyaging Satyrs hanging out in there, that'll be a nice juicy target as well.
Rattleclaw Mystic, another target. So I think there's enough, even though, you know, Green Devotion does have a lot of big stuff that you can't touch with Magma Spray. I think the fight is usually about mana and not about what comes down after the fact.
What do we see on the other side?
2 copies of Soul of New Phyrexia and Arbor Colossus, a Bow of Nylea, 4 copies of Circle of Flame, a Reclamation Sage, 4 Phyrexian Revokers, 2 Hornet Queens. Not a lot to bring in here in my mind. I like the additional Arbor Colossus. I think the 2 copies of Hornet Queen are fine. Good against Stormbreath Dragon decks in general. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of sideboarding here out of John. Some little improvements, but nothing major.
Let's talk 2014 Open Series schedule for the rest of the year, my friend, as we are going to become good buddies or get really tired of each other.
Yeah, become good buddies. I thought we kind of already, well, whatever.
You know, I didn't want to spoil
Sure,
it,
okay.
but okay. You know what? We'll work it out.
Yep.
The dates that we've already done here, we went to Orlando for the Grand Prix, of course, Worcester last week, and we're in Minneapolis now. And hey, we'll go to Oakland. That'll be a lot of fun. Oakland is one of my favorite stops.
Yeah, flying up to the Bay Area on Halloween will probably be a blast.
And you know what? I know about you. You love the Bay Area. You are rooting for the Giants in the playoffs because you love the Bay Area.
I'm really rooting against the Giants because I dislike the Bay Area.
Oh, you don't like the Bay Area? Okay. Well, we'll be going to Oakland next
I like
weekend.
it fine. Just whatever.
You can't go about face now.
It's a larger conversation.
We'll go to Columbus after that. That'll
you put
be
me into a corner by just bringing that up.
Absolutely,
What am I
I
supposed
did.
to do?
Columbus the 3rd time this year, actually, before going to a Grand Prix in your home state. Our Legacy Grand Prix there, November 14th through the 16th. We'll go to Richmond after that. Matthias Hunt and myself will take care of that show. Atlanta after that. A city I know you actually are fond of.
I really like Atlanta.
And then we'll follow that up with an Open Series in Portland, Invitational in Seattle, and then the Players' Championship in Roanoke as game number 2 is underway here. Hoogland with a Frontier Bivouac. Let's make it 2 of those and an Elvish Mystic, while McCarroll just with a Temple of Abandon to start things off. We'll see if he can find some mana acceleration on turn 2, and he can't. It's a tough start there for the Devotion deck, which is basically a ramp deck in disguise.
And it appears that John has brought in Bow of Nylea for this matchup, which I think has limited use against Jeff. It's not going to be able to kill any of his flyers. I don't think giving Death Touch to his attackers is that good of a power because Jeff's not that interested in blocking to begin with. The life gain doesn't matter that much. We'll see how it plays out, but I have my doubts about it in this matchup.
Air of the Wild's going to get hit by the Teamer Charm there as Jeff's going to attack for 1 after playing a Chivalry. Jeff's hand doesn't look all that strong at this point, so McCarroll might be able to just overpower things here depending on what his setup is. There's a Mountain. That's a Courser. You see, John's going to leave the fetch land in play because he wants to be able to control his Courser a little bit. There's another Teamer Charm, though, so that's going to counter that. Back to Hoogland we go. A Mountain was the draw. You see Jeff is drawing quite a few lands here. He's going to play Wooded Foothills and bash in for 1.
Just hand's very reactive. I think land's just a Crater's Claw left over.
Yeah, I think that's all he's got as well. You see McCarroll's going to sacrifice this Wooded Foothills. He'll take 1, get the 5th land out of his deck.
A Stubborn Denial as well.
Oh, we're crossing our fingers with that one.
Yep. Come on, Nissa.
Yeah. We are crossing our fingers with that Stubborn Denial. See, there's a Genesis Hydra. There's also a copy of Xenagos there as well. Can't Stubborn Denial that one.
Oh,
That is a creature.
haven't seen this one in a while.
Yeah, you know, Xenagos, God of Revels, well, I think it was expected to be more powerful than it's actually ended up being. There's still plenty of time, though. We still got basically a full year left with this card.
Showed up in some green-red monsters lists early on, and then became a sideboard card, and then kind of got phased out.
It always felt like a 1 or a 2 of, though the power level on that card is very, very high. Here's a bunch of mana for a Genesis Hydra. Can't Stubborn Denial that either. So now we're going to take a look at the top 4 cards, and now Nylea is going to come into play as well. And
It's a god party.
we got ourselves a stew going.
Yeah, look at this.
Devotion check. It's moving up. Here's an attack for 4. Let's actually make it 8 because of Xenagos.
So neither god is currently turned on.
Not yet, but it doesn't take much more. Xenagos is at 5. You see 2 for itself, 1 from Nylea, 2 from the Genesis Hydra. But Nylea is at 4, 1 for itself, 1 from Xenagos, and 2 from the Hydra. So it only takes a little bit more for each of those gods to come online. And we know how difficult those are to beat when they're turned on.
Yes. And Jeff now in the position where, you know, maybe he can win the game with running Crater Claws, but he has to cross his fingers and hope he doesn't die, which is very unlikely.
Step 1 is Crater Claws that Genesis Hydra. You got to get that thing off of the table. But every threat that McCarroll plays now is very, very dangerous.
I think McCarroll's leftover is Nykthos, Bow of Nylea, another Genesis Hydra.
The Hydra's the scary one there. Jeff going to sacrifice his Wooded Foothills, go get a land out of his deck. It looks like it's going to be a forest that he does search up.
And even that represents a small win for John here, because I think the only way Jeff's going to win is by some sort of burnout.
Here's
So
a Rabble Master.
getting to trade with a Crater Claw there, it's not so bad.
Not a bad exchange. Rabble Master's going to make a Goblin. I think we're going to see Jeff bash in for 1 there. There's a forest. This is a really mad Genesis Hydra. We'll see what's going to come along with it, as it's for 5. Stubborn Denial. Yeah, Jeff's going to show his hand. He's just going to concede the game because he knows he cannot beat this combination of cards. John McCarroll's going to win this match over Jeff Hoogland. 2-0. Green-Red Devotion takes it down over Team Aggro. Jeff just kind of got overpowered there.
A little bit.